have the audacity to say the ref should have warned him.
I went back. I watched every single snap from last night that Kadarius Toney played. Not one time did he check with the official, but that play that we're talking about was not the first time it happened in the game.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we have a very interesting topic and a very controversial one as well, as we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. This was one of the games of the week as we come out of NFL Week 14. And the question is, did the referees actually cost the Kansas City Chiefs? Now, before we get into it all, I kindly ask that you drop a like on the video. All my new viewers, I kindly ask that you consider subscribing. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers and we're almost there. But for the Buffalo Bills that moved to 7-6, they defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 20-17 in Arrowhead Stadium, and this gives the Chiefs back-to-back losses. They lost last week versus Green Bay, and they lost this football game. For the Buffalo Bills, this keeps their playoff hopes alive. They're going to have to continue to win football games, but I think you take it one game at a time, and you come out of this one feeling a little bit better about yourselves, because what we saw in this game, even in the first half, you go into halftime as 14-7, and you almost gave this football game away in the second half. This is kind of what we saw a little bit versus Philadelphia last week, where you jump on them early, and then as the second half comes, now defensively you can't find any answers. Now you can't find any adjustments. But I think Sean McDermott, he was able to get his guys on the defensive side of the ball, and they got into a situation where even where they were knotted up at 17, we still said, okay, we're not letting this slip out of our hands offensively. Shout out Josh Allen, because I think even though they only scored 6 points in the second half, he was able to make some timely plays, get them in the field goal range, and still hold on. This was a defensive football game by all means. And you'll think about it, what will actually spark controversy in a matchup like this? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You're probably thinking a game that's over somewhere around 60, 55 points, but this was a game, 47 total combined points from two of the best quarterbacks in the game of football. Josh Allen was 23 of 42, 233 yards, had a touchdown, had an interception. Patrick Mahomes, 25 of 43, 271 yards, had a touchdown, had an interception. But talking about the most controversial topic of them all, with 1 minute and 12 seconds left in the football game, a lateral touchdown pass from Travis Kelce to Kadarius Toney got nullified. Why did it get nullified? Because Kadarius Toney was flagged for lining up in the neutral zone. Now, I want to bring in some sound bites from both Andy Reid, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Patrick Mahomes had to say. Then we're going to talk about what the referee and Carl Sheffers had to say before we analyze this and talk about my own personal view of this thing. So let's hear it.
I never use any of this as excuses, but normally I get a warning before something like that happens in a big game. A bit embarrassing in the National Football League for that to take place.
So getting out of what we heard from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes a little bit, I want to actually talk about what did the referee and Carl Sheffers had to say pertaining to this call. Now, he said no warning is required, especially if they're lined up so far off sides where they're actually blocking our view of the ball. Now, I agree with him on this one, and I think what we see from this one, if I want to be 100% objective about this, usually what we'll see from a receiver, am I on the line of scrimmage? Am I off the line of scrimmage? Do I need to step back a little bit? Do I need to step up a little bit? Referee, am I good? That's sometimes what we'll see, and that's attention to detail. Now, sometimes we see that, but all the times we don't see that from receivers. I think even going back to pregame, we'll see it from a coach, from an offensive coordinator. We'll bring this out. Can we run this motion like this? Will it be an illegal motion when we get in the game? Can we run this formation? Can this guy be eligible? Can we do this in the game? You want to check those types of things because maybe you have a new play in the playbook that you want to have and actually run probably down in the red zone and just see if it's all good, all fine and dandy. But I don't think that we can really look at it and say the referee has to warn him, that he's obligated to warn him in a situation like that. I think it all comes back to attention to detail for me with the Kansas City Chiefs, because what we even saw a drop from Kadarius Toney in this game. We've seen a team that has lacked attention to detail offensively for the duration of the season. I mean, we're seeing miscues in the first half. Patrick Mahomes, he's thinking one thing. The receivers thinking one thing. They're reading man and zone concepts differently. We're seeing middle of the field open. We're trying to get behind the safety. We're not doing that. We're seeing middle of the field closed. We're trying to get underneath the safety. And you see a lot of times Patrick Mahomes, he'll throw the ball and his hands are up. We can see the frustration is visible on him, especially with that group of young receivers. And I think even with it, Travis Kelce has been able to kind of be consistent. It hasn't been one of those Travis Kelce type seasons that we usually see, but he's still been the best receiver on this team. Rashee Rice, another rookie out of SMU, he stepped up. But we look at guys like Sky Moore. he hasn't came on just yet. We look at Kadarius Toney hasn't stepped up in that manner just yet. And I think for me, I'm perfectly fine with the call. I think that because it went against them. Now, if this was the Buffalo Bills and we said, okay, this was a penalty, we obviously see that Kadarius Toney is lined up in the neutral zone. Why wouldn't we call it? If we want to be 100% non-biased and objective, we have to look at this and say, this is what we see on the football field. This is not legal, and it's a penalty. We can't be thinking in the back of our heads, oh, what about Travis Kelce's Hall of Fame highlight tape? Oh, these guys are down by 3 points. Oh, that's a big-time touchdown. We can't be thinking about that. That's not even in our minds. And I think for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to say that that was the reason and such a big-time determining factor within the football game, well, you look at it and you fumble earlier. You look at it and you just took a punt earlier. So I think these are the types of things that come into the football game. I think it is a bad look because how can we want the referees and put all of the onus and blame on them to now back us up for some of our deficiencies, to back us up for some of our lack of detail? I just can't get behind that. Now, even with Patrick Mahomes, I think that for you can't say it because now what are our running backs thinking in that room? What are our receivers thinking in that room? They're going to buy into it because you're the leader of the football team. Everyone gets behind number 15 in Kansas City. So now everyone is saying, okay, the referees, bad call. That's why we lost the game. No. If you were more detailed, more fine-tuned, more honed in on your execution in a moment like that, we don't even think about this conversation twice. But I think because of what actually happened, because it was a touchdown, will we be having the same conversation if it was a 2-yard run? Will we be having the same conversation if it was a 3-yard pass? Like I said, I think the magnitude of the moment plays into it. But you got to say also, put your shoe on the other foot. If we look at it for Buffalo, Kansas City Chiefs, you're up 20-17. If Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir throws a lateral pass to Stephon Diggs and he goes scores, should that stand if he was lined up in the neutral zone? That's the question. That's really where I'm at with it. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments because I think it is a very controversial one. And I just can't put it on the referees to take up for my lack of discipline, for my lack of attention to detail. That's just something that I can't see. Now, we talk about consistencies and you haven't called this all game. Why do you call it now? Well, you probably didn't line up in the neutral zone all game. I think that's the first thing that you have to say. And just feeling like it's deflecting a lot of blame. That's kind of where I'm at with it right now. But what do you guys think about it? Do you feel like this should have been a penalty? I think it was a penalty. That's not the question. And you're probably saying if it is a penalty, why are we even having this conversation about something that was a penalty and that was called in the fourth quarter? That's kind of how I feel. I'm not a guy who's huge on getting into the referee calls, talking about these types of things, but because it's so controversial, I do want to offer up my thoughts a little bit. I do want to talk about this with you guys and see what you have to think about this one. Did the NFL referees actually cost the Kansas City Chiefs, or were the Buffalo Bills just a better team in yesterday's football game? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this one as always. But that's going to do it for today's show. Really want to have this conversation. But now